Welcome everybody to Teamfight Talkshow. I am DoA. With me is Frodan as usual. And today we have another guest from the European region. Wow, a rarity for the show, but it's becoming less rare, which I like. We've got ImSoFresh on here, who is not French. He is from Belgium. You all have to understand that, because I looked at all your stuff and it was all in French. So I made an assumption back when you won Mort Dog Madness. I made a mistake. I apologized on that on Twitter. I'll apologize again right now. But welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you. It's fine. Don't worry. I'm so fresh from France from now. No problem.
Sorry.
Most people don't even know I'm Belgian anymore. So who cares? Who cares?
So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how do you get so involved in the French scene specifically?
I mean, I guess it's the language, because as you know, we don't really have a big scene in Belgium. Even back in the days when the esports was becoming a thing, I just got bound to everything that happens in France because I just speak French. So it's just natural when you stream in French that French people are gonna get involved, and that's it. And we still don't really have that many infrastructure. Even if it's getting developed, most Belgian players and all esports, they just get more involved in the French scene. So that's just logic.
All right. That makes sense. Frodan,
we're a very small country right next to France, so
I know where Belgium is. I'm not that bad. All right, I would love to go there someday. That'd be great. Frodan, have you been to Belgium?
I've been through Belgium because I lived in Germany and then I traveled a lot to France, and so a lot of times you take like the trains and then be able to make stops. So Belgium was a very lovely country. I've not been able to spend a lot of time there.
Where
but
in
I hope
Belgium?
to.
Was it Brussels?
Yeah, it was the Brussels station, but like I wasn't there for very long, only a few hours, and then I decided to walk around, just get like a little lunch, and then move on. But I hope to one day spend more time because it's been so long since I've traveled, period. And
seriously,
would love to visit Europe again. And I think that part of like Central/Western Europe, I would love to go back and spend more time again.
Great idea.
Same. We're all missing travel with esports. Europe is one of the places where I feel like I haven't gotten to go to enough in esports. I've done it. I've been to Poland 3 times, which is Eastern Europe. But I haven't been to. That was for IEMs, basically.
That's like Katowice,
2 IEMs, and then Katowice. Yeah, so 2 IEMs and an Overwatch World Cup stop was those. But then I went to
IEMs
2015. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. You did that because you were a
in Warsaw and Katowice.
Yeah, you were League of Legends pro back in the day.
Yeah.
Nothing more to say about that. It's okay.
Yeah,
it's fine.
I like what Avengover said in chat. He says, "When Fresh wins, he is French, and when he does bad, he is Belgian."
There you go.
That's how it goes.
Good summary of it. Yeah.
Well, we should probably talk about TFT at some point in this show. We've got a lot to talk about today. We've got a great show as usual. We've got patches to talk about and all that. But before we dive into that, I do want to get to know ImSoFresh just a little bit more. So as we usually start off, we ask our guests to kind of talk about their esports history and background. We touched on it a little bit. You were a League player, but like, what got you into competitive gaming just in general? What made you want to do that?
I guess I was just really passionate about video games. Not even like about esports, but I was playing a lot of video games when I was younger. I was kind of my escape. I was really, you could even say, addicted to video games. I always been playing them a lot, and I had something with League where I would just want to grind more and more. So I got into high elo, and then it was the time, when teams like TSM and CLG were famous and they were streaming a lot. So I would watch a lot of TSM streams and be like, whoa, these bunch of friends are just playing together and like traveling and playing tournaments. That's great. I want to do that as well. So I kind of chased that idea until the point where I started playing tournaments and won some of them. So it kind of started the career from there. And that's where it started.
The rest is history. I have a question. This is very important. You mentioned TSM and CLG. They actually had a pretty big rivalry back then with Reggie versus Hotshot. Did you cheer for a particular team? Which one did you prefer to win when they went head to head?
Yeah, today it's really weird to say TSM, but I really like TSM.
Hey,
it was back in
it was a good squad.
It was the team with Rainman, Chaos, Reggie, and stuff.
Oh wow, that's
really old school.
Yeah. Before even Darius and all them joined. Wow, that is OG. OG.
Wow.
Okay.
Very
Chaos. That's a name I have not heard in a long time.
Yeah, but that was the team I really enjoyed watching, and then I would spend all my every time there would be like a major event with like IEMs. I would just spend my entire weekend watching every game and be so passionate about it. So, and yeah, TSM was one of these teams, and it was really fun. It was really cool. It was the beginning of like streaming websites like Own TV and stuff, and you felt like you could really connect with those people because they were streaming all the time. They were like in a gaming house, so it was pretty much like one of the only teams you could really follow. And today you can pretty much do that with a lot of teams, a lot of players, but back then it was kind of special. So I guess that's what I liked about them.
Interesting. All right, cool. So what led you to TFT then out of that?
Oh, how did we get into
How did you end up in TFT? Yeah, well, because you were a player, then you were a coach for a short time.
Yeah.
Then you became a TFT streamer / pro. So how did that sort of arc happen there?
I think I know exactly how I ended up playing TFT, I can remember after I stopped being a coach, it was like in 2016. I've been doing like I've been working a bit as a freelance shoutcaster and other stuff in France, but I've been streaming a lot of League of Legends solo queue, right? And I've been playing solo queue for so many years. I started in like 2012 streaming. So after a while, after so many years, you stop really having a great interest in like staying relevant, staying really good, staying like top challenger. And after a while, it just gets a bit tiring to just play solo queue daily. And I can remember being a little burnt out about League. And then TFT suddenly came out, and it was on the League client. It was really hyped. It was it was a new type of game, a new genre based on League of Legends. So it was just really natural for me to just try. And as soon as I tried, I really loved it. So it was very natural for me to just switch, because I can remember I would just play the game all day long every day. And I can even remember the situation where you had to wait for so many hours to just connect to the PBE, because everyone in the world was just trying to connect. So I can remember that period. I really loved the game, and I've been staying aboard for all this time.
Yeah, things have certainly worked out for sure. So let's move on to talk about our current patch here in TFT. Let's talk about the game a little bit. So we had 11.13 come out. I've really enjoyed this patch actually. This set's been a little bit up and down for me, but I feel like I've had a lot of fun honestly with this patch. Where have you been at with this one? ImSoFresh.
For the current patch, I think I really loved the first days of the patch. Because I would just play. I would play really flex with like most of the comps we know, and it felt like people had really big struggles knowing what to play. So I think I got like 600 LP on both my accounts because I wasn't really playing too much before the patch. But then now it's kind of in a state where you have to play redeemed with Lux, or like two other comps, or you're pretty much, it's really hard to win the game. So there's a lot of comps that are really good right now, and there's a lot of comps with which you can make top 4, but it's really hard to win against a redeemed comp.
Yeah, for sure.
I can remember so many games I played like last 2 or 3 days where I would have a massive lead, I would have a massive econ, decent items, and I would just take -15, -20 to all the redeemed player that would be capped after stage, like middle stage 4. So I'm really looking forward to next patch, which is tonight.
Today, yeah, that's right. The B patch
should be going out
the
soon.
B patch,
yep,
very soon.
I think it's gonna be good because I kind of like the patch overall, but I just believe like a couple champions are a bit too overtuned. And
there's always been that one comp that seems to be like that's the thing that's kind of gone through this entire set. I feel like Frodan, where we've had like it's been good patches where there are a lot of things that are viable, but there's always one comp that's like clearly the top. Like right now, it's redeemed. Is that kind of your impression too?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple things I want to talk about. The first is that I think that outside of Redeemed, because yes, it does need to be nerfed and it will be patched today. They did a lot of good things in this patch. For one thing, I think the rework on Nidalee feels a lot better. You know, that's so she feels like a viable 3 cost. And there's like this weird mini game that happens in stage 1 where it's like, what 3 cost do you get out of your orb? And it always feels really good when you get like the Yasuo, the Lux, or even like the Ashe Zyra for the early Draconic, whatever you want.
I definitely think the best is Nunu. Maybe that's my feeling.
Nunu was really good. But Nidalee always felt really bad. And now it feels much better. Now it feels much better to get there. I like the buffs to the Sunfire Cape and Ionic. I actually think this is one of my hot take opinions, and I kind of wish this is not actually an agree section, so maybe we can lightly transition into it soon. But I think Sunfire Cape also is a little bit too strong right now. I think it is so obscenely powerful on stage 2 and 3 that it almost feels like it single-handedly preserves like 20 to 30 HP just by having that item alone. So I think it's so good.
I mean, I definitely agree, but it has to be strong, especially in early game. Otherwise, the item is just useless. You usually don't see people slamming Sunfire Capes in like after stage 4, even after stage 3 in some instances. But the only comp I can see a Sunfire slammed later in the game is probably Redeemed, because the fight is just so long that it's gonna have a great value. But yeah, I agree. I like Sunfire Cape, and that's a reason why I often start with a belt or armor, because I feel like building a strong front line is the way to snowball a game. You are never gonna snowball a game if you don't have a strong front line. So items like Warmugs, Sunfire, and Bramble Vests are really great ways to win your early game by having like a Gragas 2, Leona 2 with one of these items, and you can. It's basically never a waste, because in late game you always have to have at least one good unit in the front line with 2 or 3 items. So yeah, Sunfire Cape really good. Make sure you start with belt or armor.
Yeah,
and
that's
play
the start
flags
right now. For sure. So I liked some of those things, but yeah, Redeem also very strong, which also maybe goes back to something that maybe we need to talk about from the bigger picture long term for TFT, which was set 3 and 4 was all about big explosions and ending the game quick. And set 5, it seems like a lot of fights are about dragging it onwards and kind of like this very long, constantly go to overtime with all these compositions that can heal based off of percentage. So they actually end up being able to sustain for so long that it feels like some of these comps that rely on the burst, if you're not like playing like a Vel'Koz, you know, even like I've seen people out heal like my Teemo DPS, even if I get it early sometimes. It's really, really sad.
What do you like better? Like what's better? Let's talk about this for a second. Is it better to have a set where like there's a lot of burst damage and that kind of thing, or do you want fights to be longer?
It's hard to tell. It's really hard, right? It's hard to tell, because these fights right now with every frontline having a Warmugs with like a Darius that is sustaining for the entire life, or these redeem fights, they kind of feel boring. But also, if you go back to set 4.5 and set 4 with like set would just one shot your entire team, I don't know what I'm wishing for. Like it's hard. Something in the middle. Like we need to have like legendary units that would have a bigger impact on the game, because I feel like this set 5 legendaries are interesting, but they're not strong enough. Also, we had some patches where some legendaries would be too good, but it feels more like legendaries right now, they're synergy bots. Like
they're kind of utility, you know, like if it's a Viego or if it's a Garen, they're really there to like augment the carries that are already there. So they do occupy an interesting place this set, don't they?
Yeah, it's interesting, but it's not like the game breaking Yone blue buff we had in the set 4, or like the spell crit titan set, or like these kind of units.
Fortune gangplank.
It's gone. It's gone. We don't have that anymore. If you hit your legendaries, it's gonna unlock your comp, but it's not gonna single-handedly carry you unless you're playing Downbringers and it's like a Garen for which you prepare the entire items. But let's talk about Kale, for example. Kale, I can remember this champ being so broken on PBE, and it's been there were patches where Kale would be really good with like Ginsu, Shadow Hodge, and GA in a redeemed comp with like knights and stuff, but it's the only comp in which it would work, and it would never work in like a legendary comp or any other comp where even if you have like a Kale 2, it's just not gonna work, because you need a very specific setup for it to work. So what's gonna happen is like if you fast 9, if you see Kales in your shop, you're just gonna skip them, and that's a bit strange.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kale has this like feast or famine, all or nothing, and I mean they designed Kale to be the strongest champion in the game if you give her enough time. but I think that just makes the play experience very polarized. People who love Kayle really love Kayle, and people who hate Kayle like absolutely are disgusted by what she does. So it's like it's very polarizing, which I guess is what they were going for when they made that champion. But it doesn't. It feels so bad because you get like all these legendary roles, and you do end up going over like a Kayle, and you're like, I can't play this at all.
Yeah, maybe
there's a surprising lack of flexibility around that champion.
Maybe it's time for a set without Kayle. Because she's been in, I think she's been in every set. She was in set 2, right? That's the only one.
She was in set 1 for sure.
Yeah, set 1. She was a 5-cost in set 1. And set 2, I'm trying to remember. Maybe she was in set. Maybe she wasn't in set 2. Okay, but she's been in the other sets. Yeah. So maybe it's time again for a set without Kayle. Who knows? Because it feels like whenever she's in TFT, she's always a very polarizing champion. Just because, you know, when you take some of those mechanics from Summoner's Rift and put them in TFT, a lot of times it's just a big AoE damage or like a big shield or something like that. So I don't know. Maybe she's just like the cursed champion. Who knows? I'm not playing a lot of her, but
I figured it out though. I found out earlier today or this week. I made a realization that this is a set that I think a lot of people have complaints about balance and all these different things, and like where are all these lessons that we learned from sets 1 to 4 that doesn't seem to be coming in set 5. And we don't have Zed. Zed is not part of set 5, and that I feel like I always love to play Zed comps of some capacity in TFT, and that I feel like that's a big core element. I was talking with all my friends. I'm like, I want Zed to come back in TFT.
Which Zed do you want to come back though? Which version?
I mean, if we could bounce set 2 Zed, that was a legendary. That was lit. I loved set 2 Zed a lot. It was super fun. But obviously, when it became the build to rush to, then it was a little bit less fun. But it was really cool. I loved it.
Electric one, right?
Yep.
It was,
Electric Summoner. Yeah, Electric Summoner Ninja or whatever. Yeah.
I can remember boards filled with Zed, like with GAs and redemptions. No, please don't. No,
not that variation, but it was a cool concept.
A more balanced version. Yeah, it was a niche. I do want to like what Transformer? What was that? What was the name of the trait where you change? Shapeshifter. That's what it is. Transformer. I don't know. I'm thinking sci-fi, but like bring Optimus Prime into TFT.
We kind of had this mechanic back in set 4, but it was more champions who would just have the synergy and into their own set, like Shyvana and Elise and Swain. They kind of had this logic where they were shapeshifters back then, but they just put the mechanic back into their spell, and it was really interesting. But also, it was a bit weird because all your team would have a lot of HP, and you have champions with you have items that just scale on enemy HP. I would say like a GiantSlayer, and if you see like 2 people going for shapeshifters, you could just easily counter them. So I don't think that's a mechanic we would like back in the game, but
it would need to be tweaked in some way for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I really liked Swain. Swain in set 1 was a very cool champ, and same for set 4. Swain is like one of the. I hope it's a champion that we're gonna have back with the same spell. I think it's really nice to have like the champion that is really tanky in the middle of the fight, that just drains everything else and puts a lot of damage. It was one of my favorite champions as well in set 4, I think.
I was a big Gnar fan too, as far as shapeshifters go. But let's talk a little bit about the B patch that's coming in today. So this is something we haven't touched on quite yet. We've talked about the fact that Redeemed is getting nerfed, but the B patch also includes some interesting stuff. Like Hellions are very much back on the menu, because I don't think Hellion starts are that bad right now already as it was in the game in 11.13. It's like they're okay, but this I think is going to definitely boost it back up again. Some buffs to individual ones, some buffs to the trait in general. You know, what do you think about this patch overall? How do you think it's going to shift things, Frodan?
Well, you know, I think having Hellions as an opener right now is just very inconsistent. Ken doesn't cast as often anymore due to his big nerfs previously. And yeah, like Kled and Poppy, like while they could be decent item holders, like Kled's actually a very reasonable item holder for AD comps if you end up having it. It ends up making like enough small buffs that it might be relevant. So I do anticipate like all these small little buffs patch after patch might just make Hellions a really reliable opening. But Hellions also has that like redeemed aspect where it's like it does feel really, really hard to kill everything and very frustrating. So I hope the early game isn't completely overrun by Hellions, but it still shouldn't be the case because, Dawnbringers haven't been touched early and they're still really strong. You can always open Brawlers, and there's a lot of different ways that you can still open, I think. And ultimately, like that, Hellions 7 getting buffed, that's not super relevant. I don't think anyone cares about that.
Yeah. ImSoFresh, what's your opinion on the B patch?
I like the fact they nerfed redeemed. That's definitely something that had to be done. Same for Lux, obviously. I'm not too sure about the Hellion buffs because I've been playing some Hellion games recently, and I think it's a bit overtuned. Actually, it's already super strong, but there's a huge condition. If you want to play a Hellion, you have to hit. You definitely have to hit Cannon and Lulu fast because otherwise it's not good. I'm not talking about the hyper roll version because I don't play that, but what I can say is if you have a fast Puppy 2 and Ziggs 2, you can actually, with the right items, have a really, really snowbally game where you just stomp everyone. Because if you have like the entire comp that is really cheap, right? There's just one cost, and like Cannon is obviously a 2 cost, but it's really cheap. You can stack a lot of econ, and you can just push and add so many synergies. Like in this comp, you can add Knight, you can add Mystics, Cavaliers. There's so many things to add, and it's really a very good setup to just snowball. Because whenever you hit that 5 Hellion spike, and if you have like a 1 static, 1 Morello, and let's say like a spell crit, everything else, every other item can be slammed, and then you can just transition that into a very good late game board where you could just add Teemo. We had this meta like a couple patches ago where people would just it was the Hellion Rush comp, right?
Right. That's what I'm worried. I was streaming yesterday, and I'm like, I had a good Hellions game, and I'm like, I had a pretty good Hellions game here. Like, and tomorrow they're getting buffed. I'm like, I think we're gonna see like 2 or 3 people trying to start Hellions in a lot of lobbies now. I think they're gonna be that good, but time will tell, I guess.
I can remember my 4 most recent Hellion games on this patch. Like 4 out of 4 games, 3 of them were Fast 9 games where I would win the game.
Not surprised.
It's the condition is like not finding Teemo too late. Obviously, you need to high roll a little bit, but in games where I had like a Lulu box and I made sure that the 5 Hellion spike would hit very fast, then these games were so snowbally. And now we have a buff on Kled, we have a buff on Puppy, and we also have a buff on Cannon. And the only issue with Cannon was that the first cast is fine. The only thing we had after the nerf is the repop doesn't always cast, and that's a huge difference because just the stun is really has a big impact on the fight. But then like having all these champs buffed and the synergy as well, which is which makes 3 Hellion way better. Now I'm not sure. It might be too strong, and we might have some people trying to roll for 3 stars with like Kled carry. I actually don't know. I can't tell, but it's something.
It's going to be interesting. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but we'll find out because there was a little bit of that already. But I think we'll have to see some data really. But I've got high hopes for Hellions. Not hopes, maybe high expectations.
It's already good. Like I can tell.
It is. Sure. Yeah.
It's already actually very
people
good.
Don't know. It's better than people think it is. It's underrated at the moment. But let's move on to other divisive topics in everybody's favorite segment, which is called Agree. Let's get on to that. And the first question for Agree is: the additional armories with emblems and special items has been good for the game. ImSoFresh. Agree?
It's a hard one. It's a hard one. I'm gonna agree.
Okay.
I'm gonna agree.
Why is that?
Because I think the set is interesting, right? The set mechanic is interesting, like all these shadow items, which is supposed to make the game more flexible, more competitive, add more options. It's nice, but if you think about it, TFT is supposed also to be a fun game, and we need like some more variance in the game. We need some special stuff. It has to be balanced though, right? And the last patch made it way better than the previous one, and it can be improved as well. But I think the mechanic itself like the armories, makes the game more fun and makes every game more different. I just believe that. It was in a bit unhealthy state last patch because a lot of comps were easy to force because you always knew you would have your spat or that would make your comp stronger. But now I think it's more or less fine, and I think it's nice that people have fun on the game, because at the end of the day, it's not 100% competitive game. It's just we need people to just enjoy the game.
True. Frodan, what do you think? Agree?
Yeah, this is a pretty easy agree for me, because I think that set 5 has surprisingly been a lack of meaningful choices with the armories, because based off the way the vertical traits have been going, or even reroll meta, right? Or even like when people were going for the 4-1 roll down for their 2-star 4 costs, it was pretty straightforward with what you wanted off the armory. It wasn't really a meaningful and interesting choice a lot of the time, in my opinion. The usual dynamic would be like, do I want this shadow item versus not? And they've improved that as well. And so one thing that I feel like could really help with the fact that they want vertical traits to be strong, and there are a good amount of people that like that kind of style, is to give other choices in different categories, like itemization. I do think the emblems sometimes are a little bit weird. Somebody in chat is like talking about how you get like these really like nonsensical emblems offered, right? You're playing like an AD comp, like you're playing Rangers, and you get offered Coven and like, you know, like other stuff that doesn't matter, and other people get like Ironclad to help them get their tech up, or they get Abomination Spat to get their 5th A-bomb. So there's a little bit of that imbalance. Unlucky at times. And sometimes the game gives you really interesting stuff. Like earlier today, I was playing the Yasuo Dragon Slayer, and I got a Dragon Slayer emblem, and I legitimately tried to chase a 6-1. And my Morgana 3 with the Dragon Slayer spat solo frontline with Archangels ended up being another carry in that comp. So that was a really interesting idea that came up because of that. And I like what that adds to the game.
Yeah. All right. I think it's a pretty easy agree. I don't have a whole lot to add to what's been said. I think I agree with ImSoFresh, where he was saying that when they initially implemented it was a little bit wonky, but now after the changes, it feels much better. I had a 6 Abomination game yesterday, which obviously that trait doesn't go to 6, but you can put in another Abomination. That's just more HP that gets added to Monstrosity, so it's still worth. But it's that kind of stuff that's fun. I think it helps you, you know, in terms of, I find some Nikos in late game. That's always decent, of course, but it seems more manageable, right? There's just something about it that seems a little bit better. But let's see, chat agrees too. So yeah, I think everybody's happy with the way the armories are kind of panning out. Way to go. Good job, Rito. Right. That's right. Let's go on to the next question. Garen is better than Darius in almost every way. Agree? I'm so
agree.
All right, I think I know what you're going to say, but
very easy agree on this one.
And why is that?
Because they both have like a scaling ability on their HP, like their max HP. They both work really good with Warmogs, right? But you have anti-heal mechanic on the game, which is Morelos and fire and everything. Anti-shield is more difficult. The only one is Volibear, and it's a legendary unit that is most likely to cast once only in one fight. Sorry. And that's it. Garen has a shield as soon as he casts. And Darius needs to cast, and then he needs to auto 3 times to heal up, right? So like just comparing these two abilities in terms of like sustain and tankiness, Garen is better. And then you have Darius casting on only 3 targets. I think it's 3 targets, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And Garen
is play him, so
and Garen is pretty much the entire map. So
yeah,
there's no doubt about the fact that Garen is way better.
Frodan, you agree?
I mostly agree. I mean, just for context, by the way, this was a topic directly pulled from the competitive TFT subreddit where people discuss this. So that's part of the headline, which is like, do we also feel the same way? I would say I mostly agree. The only caveat is that if you haven't played a Darius 2-star in just some of these like damage-based compositions that's fully itemized, then you really haven't really lived. You know, like Darius with like a tank item and an Archangels and just like all this stuff, like he actually really is hard to deal with. So I've seen some of these skirmisher comps that like can't get any stronger because they hit Jax 2 and maybe they don't have the ability to chase Nidalee and whatnot. They added the Darius 2, and all of a sudden I'm like, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. Darius sucks. And then they just like completely crushed my front line in seconds. And then Darius is on my back line, instantly healing, never dying. My Kindred activates. It doesn't matter because Darius just doesn't go down. So Darius can shine, but it's very, very narrow conditions, and you have to like fully itemize him, fully 2-star, have the HP to stabilize, and have a comp that supports him as well. And that's just a little bit too much to ask for right now.
Yeah, same for me. I think I agree with this one too. We're all in agreement with a lot of things today. Where Darius, I used to play a lot of Felios compositions earlier in the set, and Darius is great in that. I've seen him perform well there. Obviously, Nightbringers he can do well in, but you kind of contrast that where you talk about Darius 2 being great, but I feel like Garen 1 is already great, with just like one item or sometimes no items, So in terms of what he needs to be good, Garen needs way less. So it's a easy agree from me. Chat agrees as well, 86%. Yeah, no surprise there. Darius has his place, but Garen seems to have more broad applications for sure.
I do like the design of it though, like this idea that there's warring factions. Dawnbringers are supposed to be giving you all this health, and Nightbringers is about bringing you shields, and then they reverse, right? Garen's about giving the shields, and Darius is about the health. So it's a really interesting like foil to each other. So design wise, very clever, and I like it. But yeah, balance wise, could be a little bit better in this category.
We should be careful what we wish for, though. A Darius that's good in every comp is kind of scary. But let's move on to the next one. Vertical comps maximum power should be about 90 to 95% of an optimized horizontal comp of more expensive champs. And I believe this comes right from Mort Dog himself. We took this from a tweet actually, and we thought it would be an interesting topic to talk about. So ImSoFresh, agree?
By vertical, you mean like say
Dawnbringer? Right, Dawnbringer, Nightbringer, Redeemed, whereas a horizontal comp would be like Dragon Slayer or Ironclad or something like that.
I'm not too much into like stats, and like I don't know what 90 to 95% means. I mean, obviously I do, but what it would mean in terms of like practically, but I can tell for sure that it should be weaker. It should be weaker than a full comp full of like 4 cost and 5 cost units with good items, like optimized with like small synergies. Like a comp which implies 6 or even 8 of the same synergy is, first of all, it's easy to build because basically you just add in everything that is in the comp. So it's really easier to make choices. Also, it's easier to build because you start with like the champions that are in the comp already. So you just add in more stuff rather than just replacing stuff.
Yeah.
And also it usually has to be played with weaker units, because usually in vertical comps you have like one cost, 2 cost, or 3 cost units, which should be weaker than the more expensive units. So it should definitely be weaker, but I'm not sure about the 90 to 95%. And I mean, that's not my job, so I can't really, it's hard for me to tell, but let's say I agree.
Okay. So you agree in principle, at least, if not in a literal sense. Frodan, what do you think?
I kind of disagree with this, only because I feel like TFT shouldn't be a game of like these rules and principles that you always are true. I think TFT is at its best when the answer is that it depends. And I think that if you always have this guideline of like a vertical comp will never be as strong as an optimized horizontal comp, which, there's a lot of conditions right into this sentence. Like, first of all, what does an optimized horizontal comp mean? What is max power? We're talking about 6 Dawnbringer versus 9, or or 8 in this case, or 6 Redeem versus 9. Like, there's a lot of different ways we could talk about it. Asking someone to go for 9 of a vertical comp feels like it should be powerful. Like, that's a lot of investment to get 9 units on the board and getting a 9 of a vertical comp. That should be strong. So there's all these like different concepts that you have to balance. So I don't think that we should be following certain rules. I think it's more about where does this composition fit in the current fantasy of the set? Does it actually feel satisfying to play? Is there meaningful counterplay, right? Part of the problem with a vertical comp is that there's not a lot of counterplay to certain aspects of it when they get online really quickly. People land 6 Forgotten and level to 6 at 2-6. Like, what can you do about that? You can't really do much. So I think what we need to do is introduce more options to counterplay and have ways to answer these really powerful, like easy to build vertical comps.
Yeah, we used to have the same problem with I think it was Warlord, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where people would just roll, and same for like Elderwood. Like these vertical comps that can be online level 6 by rolling down 3-2, they're the most dangerous ones because it's too easy to set up, and then once you've got your comp set up, you can just econ for eternity and just add in more stuff later on. And it really shakes the game pace for everyone else and the way people are going to play in the meta, and it's going to directly impact what comps are going to be good or not, because the ones that are going to be too hard to set up are going to be bad, and the one that spike earlier are going to be better, right? And I kind of agree with Frodan when he said TFT should be, it depends, but at the same time, there's always going to be win conditions with comps that are not just going to be everything 2-star with like bis items, and you can always adapt your comp to your opponents. But yeah, it was more of like a general idea, so okay. I kind of agree with some things he said.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one to talk about, and that's why we wanted to bring it on the show, because I think there's definitely arguments for both sides. Like, I don't think there is like a right or wrong answer to this one. I'm gonna kind of agree, though. I think I'll agree, but it's a very soft agree, because I agree with Dan in that like there shouldn't be any sort of hard and fast rules. I think it has to take into account what the set mechanic is. It has to take into account what the other traits are. This is the first set I can remember where we had so many vertical comps be good at the same time. We've always had a couple of them here and there, you know. Chat is exactly 50-50 on this right now, too, as far as the results of the poll. That's kind of interesting because, yeah, I think there's arguments on both sides. I think the game is best when the game is about putting together what is more horizontal, I suppose, where you're pairing together interesting different side synergies and making a comp on the fly and not just going like one direction only. But I do want that to be an option if people want to play that way. So it's also a question to do with viable play styles. I don't think we can have that quote unquote easier way of playing be always the best. So I do agree that it should be a little bit weaker, but it's just such a complex issue. It's tough. So I'm gonna like agree, but very, very soft agree. So we didn't decide anything. We didn't get anything done, but it was an interesting conversation. Let's go on to a fourth question here. The cost of level 9 should be lowered. ImSoFresh. What do you think?
Yes.
All right. Why?
It's too expensive. Please give us level 9 back, please. I beg you. It was so fun back then to go fast 9 and like play legendary units and like 4 costs. Now it feels like even when you have like a very, very strong game with a lot of econ and your board is stabilized, you just need that extra 10 to 20 gold to get to level 9. And then even after you hit level 9, the odds to hit legendaries are too low, because I personally think 15% is too low. It used to be higher, and then they lowered it because of the chosen units, and they never reverted that percentage back to what it was before. So now it feels like 9 is too expensive, and yes, you're gonna hit your legendaries, but it's not that easy. It's not always that easy, and I can remember a lot of games where I would be level 9 with a lot of gold, and it still was not enough compared to everyone that just rolled their entire gold level 8.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it should be either lowered, like the cost of level 9, or you give us more odds to find legendaries, like 20% maybe.
Bigger benefit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Frodan, what do you think?
I agree. I think that level 9 should be an interesting decision, and right now it's just a little bit too. It's just too good to roll on 8 right now, relative to 9. And I think that lack of actual meaningful decision making it takes away from the late game, because part of TFT is that there's this expanding bubble of decisions that you have to constantly juggle, or a web of decisions you have to juggle, and it just keeps expanding. And level 9 should enter that fray, but if it's never really into the equation, unless you're giga high rolling or you need to in order to win, I think that it's not that interesting. Also, I like what Fresh said, which is that a lot of the systems design for level 9 has been a carryover from the chosen mechanic, both in percentages, but also like part of what made level 9 really interesting in the other versions of the legendary comps, like in set 3, was that the champion pool was way smaller. So the odds actually made more sense to 2-star. But now in set 5, we have as many units as we did in set 4, which is in the 50s. And for reference, set 4 and 5 has more champions than all of set 3 combined. If you combine both the champions that were in set 3 and set 3.5, the ones that were removed. So it's just, there's so many champions in the pool that going to level 9 is actually not super good to even reliably 2-star your legendaries anymore. I've rolled with like 40 to 50 gold. I even have clips of it where I couldn't even find the desired legendary that I wanted to make my team come online, like a Garen. And then it was mind-blowing to me, because I was like, this should be the reward for level 9, not a punishment for not rolling an additional 40 gold, or rather spending 40 gold to level and then rolling 40 more. It felt really, really bad.
Okay. Yeah, I'll agree with this one too, just because right now when I go into a game of TFT, I never expect to go level 9. Never in a million years do I go into a game and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go level 9 this game, right? It's not even a thought that like enters my head, you know, where in previous sets, it's like, all right, we'll play it out and we'll see if maybe level 9 is an option. But in this set, when I realize I have a chance to go level 9, it's like a big surprise. It's like, wait, I could go level 9 this game. And I always do, because I feel like it's such a rarity. But I'd at least like it to be a little bit more in my mental sort of planning for a game, you know? Because right now I never ever plan around going to level 9. And I feel like that probably means it's too expensive by itself. Even taking out all the percentages and things like that, the holdovers from set 4 and everything. Just the fact that like when I think about a game of TFT, level 9 never even enters into my plan, probably means it needs to come down a little bit, at least from my perspective. So I'll agree with this.
For me, there's only 2 ways to reach level 9 right now. It's either Hellions or Draconic. Like it's literally like the 2 only scenarios where you can say that's the scenario that's gonna most often carry me to level 9, because one is giving you a lot of econ with like the boxes and stuff, and the other one is just, it's really strong and it's really cheap units, so it doesn't cost you too much to just add stuff. You just press F, you never press D. Once you're set up, you just level, and then you add in more units later on. And if you're playing any other comp, you need to stabilize level 7 a lot, and then you need to stabilize level 8. And once you're capped, then if you have nothing else to roll level 8, then you go level 9. And it's not even just to roll stuff level 9, it's just to have that extra unit on your board that is going to make your comp stronger, like that extra mystic against all the redeemed,
right?
Or I can't think of anything else. But then yeah, it definitely feels like there's only 2 ways to hope for a level 9 right now. And the thing is, level 9 is not only too expensive, but it's not that rewarding. If you're just putting apart the extra unit, that is not even that good anymore, because all of the armories that are giving you so many spatulas, there's so many force of natures right now, so it's really hard to say.
I'm curious to see what'll happen with it. It's I think everybody wants to be level 9 a little bit more often, but we'll see. That it introduces its own can of worms balance wise too. But I love this segment. Agree's always a ton of fun. Let's move on to everybody's favorite segment though. It's going to be esports. That's right. And you're going to be casting pretty soon. So right, you're casting this, aren't you? ImSoFresh. So how does it? So you've done both, right? You've pretty much done it all, honestly. In esports, you've been a player, you've been a coach, you've been a caster, you've been a streamer. Like, how does casting an event contrast with playing in an event? You know, what's the difference thought process wise? How do you like the two?
It's more relaxing.
Yeah, you don't have as much pressure to win.
Casting is so much fun, because when you play, it's really stressful. You have to, if you're having a rough start in your game, in your first games, then you're gonna be into so much pressure, because playing a tournament, you never know what's gonna happen. You can low roll your first game, you can high roll your first game, and like having everyone else high roll as well. You can so many things can happen, and not just you playing good cannot guarantee you're going to win the tournament, right? I mean, I've been casting so many tournaments. I've seen so many different players win games. Some players have been like very consistent. Like even if in this list, in this very list, you can see Double 61, you can see Voltrix, you can see Lyris. These players in France, they tend to always be in the top 5, let's say, of the competitions. They always do good, but they don't always win. Like, it's really funny, but that same player, that Double 61, he won Worlds set 3.5, right? But then he never won. He never won any tournament after that. He was always placed second. He was always second, even though everyone can tell he's the best. He's the best French player for sure. He never won a tournament after that, and always played second. You're never guaranteed to win a tournament, even if you're the best player among everyone else. But casting is you just want to show people what you see, and then you can always switch to any other POV. So if anyone else is high rolling in the game, you just switch to his POV and you just enjoy what he's doing. You just explain stuff. Also, you can it's also about emotion. It's kind of different how we cast in French. I think it's kind of close to how Koreans are doing, if I'm not mistaken.
Just a lot more just excitement and energy all the time.
Yeah. Okay. I like that part about casting, because I think it's really fun. Also, I think TFT has to be a show before being very about being a competition.
Yeah, it's about entertainment. Yeah,
because it's a bit RNG and there's like flashy stuff, so it should be fun. And yeah, I think casting is way more fun than actually playing the tournaments. So if I'm having the choice, if you're asking me, would you rather cast this tournament or play this tournament, I will always say casting.
Wow. All right, a little bit insight.
Even though I'm competitive, I think casting is more fun.
All right, that's reasonable. Cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about some other tournament stuff that's coming up pretty soon. That's right, we do like fun in video games. It's and speaking of fun, GiantSlayer series is coming back finally. A series that Frodan and I casted a lot of last year, went away as GiantSlayer started doing more official stuff with Riot, which is great, but we missed the tournament. But this is also a duo tournament too, which is very interesting. It's different from the previous formats, Frodan, that we did. We're always individual. It's duo this time. I'm obviously very excited. You must be very excited too. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I think that, team formats in TFT has been what a lot of seasoned, experienced players say that they like. I think for many people who are still yet to play, their first set of TFT tournaments, they'd rather play, individual 8-player battle royale. But for a lot of people who've done it a lot, they feel like team tournaments are a really great way to experience the game. Also, it makes watching a little easier to follow because there's 4 things to follow, or 4 stories to follow, as opposed to 8 in a game. So I personally enjoy it a lot. And I don't know if this should be always the tournament that we're doing with TFT in North America or anything like that.
Sure.
But I like that we're having variety, because I think that would be really interesting. More is better.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of more, let's or maybe not more. Let's well, actually, first I want to get ImSoFresh's opinion on the 2v2 format. What do you think as a player? Team formats, solo formats, 4v4, 2v2?
It's really good. It's really good, and it's really interesting because you can add different dimensions to the game with like communicating. Like, let's say you have one player being snowballing the lobby, and then the other guy that is last, and that can always choose at the carousel. It can add like more like maybe strategies to the game and how you go into games. I think 4v4 is really fun as well to watch and follow. We had like I think it was Twitch Rivals I think it was last week, where it was 4v4 on TFT, and it was teams of 4 players. And I can remember I was casting the games, and it was really, really fun to follow, because you had scenarios with like one team being the first 4 players, and then the other 4 bottom players, and that same thing can happen in 2v2. And as well as Frodan said, it's less stories to follow, in a game where maybe there's 8 players. So yeah, definitely a good idea, and we should have more of these tournaments like duo and maybe teams of 4 players as well.
I really enjoy both. Like after casting a lot of everything, really, because I've casted a good amount of team tournaments too at this point. Like I like both for different reasons. Like I love, as someone who started out in StarCraft 2, a solo game way back in the day, I always love the you versus everyone else aspect of just individual play, and that's the format I think I like most for like worlds and things like that. I don't ever want to see that go to a team format, but I do love team tournaments too, because like you said, it's easier to follow the storylines. There's more new kind of storylines that pop up with duos and cooperation and strategies with that. So I think we just need both at the end of the day. I think we need both kinds of tournaments, and hopefully we'll get a good amount of that stuff as time goes on. But let's talk about some other tournaments that are happening in the near future. We've also got the EU Reckoning Qualifier that's happening right now. So here's the bracket. Here's how things are breaking down. ImSoFresh. We won't dwell on this a huge amount, but you're from the EU region. We want EU region players' opinions on this stuff. So what do you
got? If I speak, I will be in big troubles.
Well, here's the skill a caster needs to learn, is to handle difficult topics like this in a diplomatic and nuanced way. So here's your chance. Go for it.
About the format, right? I think it has been modified. It's 40 slots for EU West right now.
I'm honestly not 100% sure. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's 40. It was 34, and everyone was really upset about it. I mean, let's be honest. And when the announcement was made, EU players were not very happy with the announcement because of the number of slots for EU West compared to EU NE, even though no one plays in EU NE. And then it was announced 2 weeks before, so it's really hard. But it's nice that we have a qualifier. I just have my own opinions about how it should be handled, and I don't know if you want me to talk about it.
Well, I'm curious.
That's why we invited you.
Yeah, how would you structure it then? If you could make changes, what would be the way you'd prefer to do it?
Okay, so first of all, we have 3 weeks of snapshot, right? I would say it's not enough. It has to be more than just 3 weeks. Also, the announcement was made 2 weeks before, so it means like maybe some people had plans for the next 2 weeks, or maybe they were not planning to play, or maybe they were like, I'm not gonna try hard too much lately. I'm just gonna wait for World's announcement, and then boom, and there's no ladder reset. So it means that everyone else that climbed to, let's say, 1.5k LP could just elo sit their way through their qualif, right? I feel like that's a bit unfair for everyone else that was just waiting for announcements. And yeah, we need more weeks of snapshot. Maybe we need like a soft reset of the ladder, at least for challenger players, before it's done, so everyone starts from a new perspective, because it should be fair for everyone, right? If you're organizing a tournament, there's no advantage to be held for anyone before it has been announced, and that's the case for now. I can imagine like so many players right now that have been top ladder by, especially in a meta where like 2 or 3 weeks ago you could just play Cavaliers with brand 20 out of 20 in your history, and you would climb, that's for sure. Let's be honest, you would get so many LP by just playing this comp all day long. And I can think of like other comps that work this way, and there's so many players in the ladder right now that would climb through this meta by playing a lot at that moment, and then when the announcement was made, you just have to play 10 games a week and just keep your LP, right? And I think it's just a bit sad, because when I remember back in set 3.5, it was pretty positive, right? I can't remember, it was 5 or 6 weeks. Was it 5 or 6?
Oh, that was a while ago.
Yeah, that
was. It feels like it was a bit longer, but yeah, but that's one of the things with the EU region, is that it seems like the information has always kind of come out like too late, you know?
Yeah, I actually also know why it has been like that, but It's understandable when you know the reason, but it's just feels like we're a bit let down in Europe, even though I think we have a lot of players, we have a lot of talent, we have if you ask me personally, I think we have the region that has the most the biggest number of good players in Europe. I can think of so many good players in Europe coming from so many different countries, and we don't have many tournaments. Like in France, we have a lot of tournaments because so many people are organizing them. We have a scene, we have a lot of players, we have a lot of tournaments, and everything is going great. But that's not the case for Europe. So many players would like more tournaments and don't have them, and then we have this announcement. So I think it has to be really tough for EU players, and it shows also when the announcement was made why so many EU players were upset about the announcement. But yeah, we need more time, more games between weeks. I think 10 games is not enough. Like you can just basically elo sit and play for top 4 for 10 games, and then you wait for next week. And then obviously a reset would be nice before the ladder counts for worlds, right?
Okay.
And then it's gonna be all good. Then everything else is fine.
Seems very reasonable. Hopefully we'll see some positive moves in future sets here. But let's move away from esports for the moment and go to everybody's favorite segment. It's the tier list, and this time we've got someone from EU on here. It's the EU tier list. That's right. It's time. I know you've been preparing for this. I know you've been thinking about this a lot. You've been boiling it down in your mind. So here we go. Who's your top 10? And you just said there's a lot of good players there, so it must be hard, huh?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell. Before telling names, I have a couple of questions. Does it have to be like an all-time EU tier list, or does it have to be specifically set 5 or like
usually it's current, but it's kind of up to you. This is your tier list. So most people do who they think their current top 10 are, but you can do you know?
Okay. So in first position, it's really hard.
Wait, which is it going to be? Are you doing current or are you doing all time?
I think I'm gonna be like. I think I'm not gonna. I'm gonna take the last 3 sets, right?
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, I'm gonna start from set 3, and I'm gonna think a little bit about set 1 and 2, but not too much because I think everyone was just not that great at the game back then, and there are so many like concepts or even parts of the game that we didn't know very well back then that is just common knowledge today, right? So
agreed.
Okay, my first player would be I'm not saying this because he's French, but I think Double 61 is my number 1 EU player for many reasons. He's just really smart about the game. He always plays off meta. He's scouting like basically every turn. He never forgets to reposition. He always knows like what options he has when he plays. He's really consistent in tournaments. He's always ending in like top 3 every tournament he plays. He had multiple rank 1s on every set. He's always very, very well rated. And yeah, he's very young as well. He's like only 17 and he doesn't play that much. Surprisingly, he doesn't play that much. He goes to school. He goes to school and he plays on the evening. He actually, I think he plays less than most players that are well rated. So he's basically my first player because he's really good.
Very understandable.
On the second place, interesting. I guess I'm gonna have to go with Mr. Desky.
Dasic.
All right.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with Daisy because obviously he's always been consistent. Mr. Popov, not always the most rated on ladder, but he performs really well in tournaments in general. He's always doing great in tournaments. I can even think of recent tournaments He won the one I was organizing. Oh no, he finished second, and then he won the next one like a couple days after that. And then he performed well in every other tournament he's played. He's always been doing fine at Worlds, except for that one Jinx move that we can all remember. But yeah, you gotta give it to him. He's also one of the first players that were like on set 2. I can remember he would just fast 9 every game and play legendaries, and he was like rank 1 couple times. Yeah, just basic. But then I have so many names I can think of for other players, but it's really hard to make like a list and tell which one comes before the other one.
You can't get off that easily. Come on.
Yep, you got to do it. You knew this was coming. You had time to prepare.
Okay, third. Maybe.
Wow, I don't think I've ever seen anyone agonize over this so long.
Over third pick. Usually people struggle around
it's hard because I really think all of these players are more or less on the same level, right? They're more or less on the same level, so it's really hard to say which comes first. I'm gonna say it's so hard. I'm gonna say Fluffy. Okay, I'm gonna go
Fluffy.
with Fluffy.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Pretty good player. I think he has one downside is that he doesn't play that many comps, but he's really good at forcing them. He's doing great on ladder. He had good tournaments, and it's not one of my favorite play styles, but I gotta give it to him because when you watch him, he's very aware of what he can do, and he has his own play style, and it works great for him. So yeah, Fluffy. Then I'm gonna put Voltrix on 4th place.
All right.
Maybe you know him.
Yeah. Of course.
Pretty good player.
I watched the most.
He's kind of like a Fluffy in a way that he doesn't play very flexible. Like he has his comps that he likes to play, but then most of the time they're not meta. Like he has his own stuff he plays, and he can force it in a very smart way, and he doesn't just like buy his champs. He always finds new transitions and a new way to snowball to stabilize his board. He's never gonna open for it. You're never gonna see him open for the game. He's always gonna be very strong and consistent. He's very consistent as a player. But then he doesn't seem to have to perform in tournaments. He's a meme in Friends where he's really bad in tournaments, but somehow he's very often rank 1 in US and in top 10 in general. So yeah, Volta is definitely one of the best players in Europe. Then maybe we have Luke coming next. He hasn't been very active in sets 4 and 4.5, but in my opinion, he's very good, and he's kind of underrated. Luke. It's the same. He plays pretty much every comp. He's good at not getting baited by by bad comps. He likes to play like the best stuff, but he's kind of flexible. He pressures a lot. It's like this.
Where our producer, we're getting the spelling right for our producer here. It's important.
Yeah, Luca. He's Italian. He's my Italian friend.
You're going around Europe, which I like, instead of picking all from one region.
Also,
so we're halfway through. You made it halfway through. It gets easier from here on out, right?
Okay, maybe next is Lalana.
Okay.
The UK player. He made it to Worlds last set. Very flexible player. Yep. He has times where I don't enjoy watching him, and then there's times where he's very flexible and very, very smart about the game. I think when he's in a good shape, he can be even like higher in this list. But yeah, very good player, very solid. And
I think that's always a mark of a really good player, which is that their play styles can change. And so sometimes you love their play style because they're super flex, and then sometimes they're very narrow. But TFT, to stay at the top, you have to be willing to do that. You can't just say like, oh, I'm always a one trick or I'm always a flex.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
There's going to be patches where you suck if you're always just going to play that way.
Maybe next is Ucko. Maybe it's hard to tell. It's hard. Yeah. It's spelled like this.
UEK or something.
U with like couple Ks.
Yeah. I don't know how to spell it exactly.
I don't know where he's from, but he's a pretty good player actually. I remember in set 4 he was we were always queuing up at the same time, and he would always do good, and he's a very crazy player, and I think it's kind of respectable that he would play Fortune a lot. He was one of these Fortune specialists where he was also a Fortune magnet. He would always have Fortune 2-1, but that's another topic. But he had a very crazy playstyle, and he was much of a gambler, but he would always find a way to find new win conditions. And I think it's something very interesting about players that can find win conditions in games that seem to be doomed. Let's say you're playing Nightbringer and you seem to roll a lot of Sejuani's, and you just randomly decide to play Seju 3 and like put 2 items on her, and it's gonna work really good for you. Well, that's the kind of things he would do, and I think that's pretty good. It's hard to finish this list because I have so many names
in 3 left
in my head. Well, okay, for the 3 remaining slots, I have Hunter in mind. I have Alex M. I have Ak. I have Salvi, and it's really hard. I have another player in mind. I think Alex M is really solid, but the reason why he's not higher in the list is because he hasn't been too much of a active player before the end of set 4.5. He's really young, right? And he was at Worlds. I don't know at which phase he got like until I think it was he was one of the 6 players. No, anyone can help me remind. But he was doing really well at Worlds, and he was one of these players known for being aggressive that would be those crazy pushes. He would push level 7 3-2. He would do stuff like pushing level 8 in 4-1, and always playing very weird, like slamming all his items. And I kind of like that style about him. And then at the beginning of set 5, he was a very solid player. He was rank 1 couple times, and yeah, he actually won some tournaments as well. And then we have Hunter. I think that's how you say it. You probably know him, right?
Yes.
He's actually a Korean dude living in Turkey. I have never understood how that could happen, but
he plays on NA a lot as well.
He plays NA.
Sometimes
from every region, I guess.
He's kind of like a global traveler.
He's really funny. He's really funny to watch because
he always plays like
he's
so loud.
Yeah. He plays random comps, and but he's really good. He was good in set 4. He's good in set 5. Very well ranked. I try not to look too much at the ladder right now for this list, because I don't think ladder right now is very accurate, because this first part of the set 5 was a bit weird, as I said a bit earlier. There's been a lot of players like playing a lot on certain metas where I would not consider it really representative of how good players are. So I'm not looking too much at the ladder, even though I know, like, for instance, Stanpop is rank 1 right now. There's Trey, there's Infernix. But all these players, I don't think they're much better than the ones I listed before. So yeah, the 10th spot is gonna go to... I'm gonna say Salvi, but it's really hard to say. Well, I'm gonna say Salvi because he's definitely one of the best players in Europe. But there's a but, and the thing is, he's really good on ladder. He's really good at like adapting. He has a playstyle that's gonna favor like top 4 play, where he would play first not to lose, and then he would try to win when he secured his top 4. But he never... I mean, I'm not following him that much, but I don't think he made that good results in tournaments. But he's a very good player on the ladder, and that's been for the entire duration of TFT, right? I think that's from set 1. He had multiple rank 1. So yeah, Salvi is probably in this list. He can be placed higher, but he would have to win more tournaments for that. So yeah, I try to think about ladder and then tournaments as well for this list, and not just ladder.
A solid, comprehensive list looking at the last 3 sets in ladder and tournament performance. This is probably one of the most thorough top 10 lists we've had. Thorough tier lists where it's definitely one of those well thought out. I think. No. Like I said, I think it was one of the most well thought out lists we've had yet.
I know. It wasn't fast. It was methodical. It was very diverse with a lot of reasoning behind each of them. So overall, a really good list.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Didn't just wing it. Yeah. Well, let's dig deeper into the mind of ImSoFresh with everybody's favorite segment. It's the mailbag. So obviously we're going to give a giveaway to our mailbag winner, but there will be another giveaway. A question will be chosen from chat by ImSoFresh. So hopefully you've got chat open so you can check out some questions from them. So feel free to throw a question our way. ImSoFresh will pick somebody to win a $10 prize. So $10. That's right. So let's and I have no idea what that translates into every currency in the EU region. So don't ask. Let's look at our question though. Reckoning Midset is just around the corner. What's one trait you would like to see gone or reworked, and what is the biggest role / niche that's currently missing or lacking that you'd like to see filled by a new or reworked trait? From Valkyrian.
Whoa.
It's a big question. Basically, yeah. Like, what would you like to see go, and what would you like to see added in a 5.5?
It's hard to say. It's hard.
I like this question though. It's a good one.
I don't even have everything else in. I don't have everything in mind because we've been talking so much about players. Now I'll have to get a builder real quick, so I have everything in mind.
Sure.
Okay. What I would love to see removed would probably be the Cavalier. The Cavalier synergy. I think I don't think that's the greatest design, and having percentage damage reduction is gonna be either too strong or just bad. I think 2 is nice, but it's always really awkward to have this synergy. And then yeah, I don't think I'm really enjoying Cavaliers because they're either too strong or kind of useless, or you just conveniently put 2 Cavaliers to just buff your rel in late game. I don't really like the synergy. And what is missing to the game? Well, as we told earlier, I think it's more about... I don't think it's more about a synergy because I'm not a game designer, so I don't spend my time thinking of what could be a nice game mechanic. I don't do that in my spare time. But sure. I would say...
Wait. You're a top player that doesn't believe that they have meaningful things to contribute towards game design? Are you sure? Are you sure, man?
I think
we found him. He's the
my
one.
job is to play the game, and I think I would be pretty good to I would be pretty good at talking about game balance, but design wise, I can say why a design is not the best, but I cannot. I would be very terrible at saying, oh, this could be a good design, because sometimes it's gonna be hard to balance as well. Because let's say, okay, real quick, let's talk about the game mechanic around set 5. And why I think the set has been really hard to balance is that we have multiple options with shadow items, but then it's really hard to balance as well because there's too many options. So every time you're gonna have a new patch, like 3 or 4 days after the patch, there's gonna be something to abuse, and it's gonna be really hard to balance unless you're putting patches every week. And same for me. Like I can come up with an idea, but I could never really imagine all the consequences it can have on the game. It's too complicated. Not my job.
All right. Well, that real quick then, if you had to predict one trait that you think is going to be removed. I'm just curious.
Oh, predict a trait. I think Dragon Slayer is going to be removed.
Okay. Why is that?
Because I think it's a very awkward design where it benefits the entire team, but then the activation is a bit weird, and it's been in a weird state, because even if you have like a spat, you still wish, like, the spat itself doesn't like improve a champion. It just activates the 4 champions. I mean the 4 trait synergy, and you still want all of these units in your comp anyway because they're good units, like Trundle, Pantheon. You still want all of these 4 units in your comp. So most of the time a spat is not gonna be good unless you have 2 of them and you can go to 6 Dragon Slayers. I feel like this synergy is gonna be gone on the next set.
Okay, interesting. All right. During all that, did you have any questions you saw from chat that you want to do the giveaway to? We'll give you a chance to look at those for a second. Frodan, I want you to predict which thing is going to be removed. Predict a trait that'll be taken out.
Okay, so the only things that I think can't be removed is Nightbringer, Dawnbringer, because that's just what anchors.
I agree. Yeah.
You can't remove that, because then you're like, why are we having this Garen versus Darius good versus evil fight?
That is a reckoning pillar.
I also really like this some of like the random traits that fit within the theme, like Teemo and Hellions. I think it's like really good. I think that I would really like to see a different way to play some of these good and evil comps that isn't like a tall vertical, such as Forgotten and Redeemed. I would like to take out both, because one's supposed to be representing good and the other's supposed to represent evil. So if you take out Redeemed, you gotta take out Forgotten, and so I'm down to take out both and start putting in a lot more interesting things instead. So that would be, and also it would change so many ways that you start to interact and splash things, right? Because then what mystics and knights are you going to start putting in instead, and like different ways you can build out your comp. How do we replace Kale as this de facto late game legendary? Because there's 2 legendaries that are supposed to be like the adjacent of Garen and Darius, which is Teemo and Kale, right? Like Teemo and Kale are supposed to be like the hyper and late game carries for good and evil. So there's a little bit of system or flavor design that is very intertwined that I'm curious how they're going to solve.
Yeah, I think taking out Redeemed and Forgotten could work really well, because there's also a lot of units that have caused problems in both of those traits. So you've got like Vel'Koz, you've got Varus, you've got Rel, you've got on the other side you've got like Rise, obviously, occasionally Hecarim, Viego. I'd love to see Viego stay in but get different traits. But I agree. We'll see. I'm really curious what that'll end up being. But I'm so fresh. Well, first of all, our giveaway winner. Let's see who that is. Our producer's telling us that.
I think I saw a very interesting question, which was, what is the spiciest take you expect to see from the learnings of set 5?
Oh yeah. All right. What's the answer to that one?
Yeah. And I like these questions because we gotta see this question from a very I don't have the word in English. Like we gotta look at the bigger picture. That's what I mean. We can't just talk about a set and just talk about like the competitive state of the game, because at the end of the day, everything is everything is related to basically everyone. Like if you want TFT to be like developed more, if you want to have more people to play the game, more people to watch the game, more people to enjoy like competitions, everything has to be in a good state. I think people enjoy playing tournaments a lot, so definitely the game should be in a spot where tournaments are fun to be played by the players. They have to be fun to watch, and then we also need people to enjoy the game casually, right?
Right.
And that's something I felt with chosen units, right? Like on set 4, most people didn't enjoy. I mean, most competitive players didn't really enjoy the chosen mechanic because it's too random, it's too strong, blah blah blah. But
Sure.
I feel like most casual player really enjoyed chosen, and I felt like on set 5, a lot of people who would be more casual are not playing because it lacks it lacks a bit of fantasy and like Mordog would say, stories to remember, right? We don't have. I can remember set 4. I used to have so often 3-star legendaries. Now it never happens. It literally never happens unless you're playing Draconic, and it's always Heimerdinger. So the first time you're doing it, you're happy. The second time you're like, oh, and then it just gets casual. So what would be a very interesting take on set 5 is how to make the game balanced for everyone is a good lesson. That we need the game to be in a competitive state, but we also need fun mechanics that make the game random, and that's the whole challenge about TFT.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I agree. I think it does need to be accessible, and that's what, I feel like some of the casual players have maybe strayed away from this one a little bit with the new item systems and everything. But it's because we can always enjoy it for the complexity at the higher levels. Yeah. But we have to keep in mind that there's a huge amount of players that just play the game because they're having fun with it. They're not trying to be the best. They're not trying to rank up. They're just enjoying the game. And so they need to be taken care of as well. So yeah, I agree. That's a good question, though. I am really curious to hear what Mort and the rest of the team are going to have to say at the end of this one, and then at the end of the set in general, because it's been fun. It's always fun, but it's been interesting for sure. But let's shout out to Casual R for winning that giveaway, chosen by ImSoFresh. He's your chosen, and so that brings us, I think, to the end of the show. So it's time for some final thoughts. Before we get there, though, keep in mind there's another Challenger series that begins today at 4 p.m. Pacific, today and tomorrow. I'm not casting that one. Are you casting that one, Frodan?
I am. I will be casting it with my buddy Esports Law, Bryce.
Nice.
Right. And it'll be fun because I know he's been a dad, but he's still managed to hit Challenger in like 100 games. He's a very talented TFT player, and love talking about it with him. It's going to be great.
Should be a good time. Final thoughts from you. ImSoFresh. Shout out to your fans. If you want to say something in French or whatever language you choose, go ahead. But yeah, final thoughts on the day.
Well, thanks for inviting me to the show. It was a great time. It's been a very long time since I didn't just talk about like TFT and stuff. Like we talk with our friends, but it's always nice to have new perspectives. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting. Thanks for everyone that watches TFT daily, and thanks for being an awesome community, because I think TFT is really chill. We don't have like the same problems other online multiplayer games have. So yeah, sure. I hope TFT is gonna stay a very nice game for a long time, and thanks for everyone that is watching TFT, that is playing TFT, and making it enjoyable. That's it.
All right. Respectable. We're happy to have you on as a guest here today. Frodan, final thoughts from you?
I think Fresh said it best. I mean, TFT is very unique. Our biggest drama is that we only have 2 weeks instead of like 4 or 5 weeks to grind Snapshot, and that our top players play 10 games and step away. That's like the biggest drama that happens. So if that's our problems, I'll take that, because I follow a lot. I'm involved in a lot of other scenes. And let me tell you, the problems that they go through are like anywhere from straight up neglect from the developer that give them zero help and actively try to detract away from their scene, or just like really bad things that are borderline like illegal in many countries around the world. So I'm glad that TFT is really banding together. We're a good group of friends, and everyone's so friendly and want to help each other. It's great.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of the most wholesome communities I've been a part of. It is true. But yeah, that's it. That's it for the show. Watch Challenger Series today at 4 p.m. Thanks again to GiantSlayer for putting on an awesome show. As always, they do great production work behind the scenes. You'll be able to see it again today, on the Challenger Series at 4 p.m. But thank you so much, ImSoFresh, for coming on the show. It's been a great conversation as always. Frodan, you are a wonderful host to host with. Thank you out there for watching. And we'll see you next time. It'll be another 2 weeks, but we'll be around. We'll be able to talk about some new stuff, hopefully. We'll see.
5.5?
Yeah, maybe. We'll find out. Don't go anywhere. Well, you can go somewhere now. The show's over. Don't go too far, though, because we'll be back in a couple weeks. Stay connected to the internet, at least. I don't know. This outro is going terribly, but at the end of the day, we're happy to have you watch. Thanks for watching. See you next time. I'm going to hide under the desk now. Goodbye.